Thank you for downloading this podcast from the British Theatre Guide. For more information about British Theatre Guide, please visit britishtheatreguide.info. In 2019, the inaugural Visionary Honours, founded by Thriller Live creator Adrian Grant, celebrated work that inspired social change in or debate about equality, diversity, inclusion, mental health, antisocial behaviour or environmental change, with recipients ranging from the film Black Panther to the musical Hamilton to BBC One's Doctor Who. For its second year, there will be a Visionary Awards ceremony in March, this year hosted by Sally Phillips, but there will also be a series of 10 bursaries of up to £5,000 each for young creative artists to support their projects. This year's panel includes the writer of hit West End musical Everybody's Talking About Jamie, Tom MacRae, who spoke to me from Los Angeles and started by explaining what the Visionary Honours are all about.
Well, this is a new awards, a new programme. I think this is only the second year it's been on and the first year that I've been involved with it. But it's something it's about kind of encouraging inclusivity in different areas within the arts, and I was sort of brought on to represent theatre and to be a judge in the theatre category. It's also attached to the Visionary Arts Foundation bursary scheme, which is a huge fund of 10 bursaries of up to £5,000 each every year, which was started by a guy called Adrian Grant, who created Thriller Live, which is our next door neighbour in the West End. Yeah. And he put it together to support the projects of 18 to 29-year-olds and to help the careers of young creatives who feel their stories not being told in the mainstream. So especially people of colour, disability, women, working class, and LGBTQ+. And I suppose I'm kind of a combination of the LGBTQ bit, and I always seek to do full representation in everything that I do anyway. So there's all issues that are important to me in my work. And it's something that's really, I think it's really important to have at the moment. I mean, we saw that the Golden Globe nominations this year the winners, of course, were incredibly white in most of the categories. And, there's still a big battle to be fought to make it a kind of a default setting that people automatically, without really having to think about it, spread the net wider than just their kind of white posh friends. And so something like the Jamie movie, we've got the movie at the stage show coming out in October. Disney, who are distributing it and doing the publicity, are so behind it. And one of the reasons is that it is incredibly inclusive in a very kind of laid back, non-tick boxy, non-tub thumping way. It's about this boy in a classroom in the modern day, so in Sheffield. So there's loads of Muslim characters and black characters, and there's really good female characters, and he's gay, and that kind of diversity and inclusivity is just organic and natural to his world and to the kind of world that I grew up in. And just kind of putting that on stage in some ways it seems to be quite radical, but really I think it should be the most ordinary thing in the world, is to hold a mirror up to the world of people who are not, we all love The Crown, but I don't want to see endless stories about rich people. I want to see stories about people like me, and I think one of the reasons why I was so thrilled to be asked to be on the Visionary judging panel was because it's been so kind of central to my work to try and put that message forward, and then to be able to do it outside of the script and the show, just to do it as me, and to be able to kind of be part of that process was an honour. But also I think it's something incredibly important, and now is the time to really be pushing that agenda forward.
It's a fairly wide remit that you've got in different categories, different areas, and you're looking at different types of inclusivity as well. So what's the judging process?
So there's different people who have different categories, and my little kingdom is theatre, so I got to put forward a shortlist of 8 shows, which will then be voted on by the general public, and also each judge gets to put forward 2 nominations for Person of the Year, which is also voted for online by the general public. So it's been a really nice thing to do, which is just kind of look at what's going on in the arts around me, and I didn't just do it on my own. I did actually canvass opinion from people whose opinions matter to me to come up with a good 8. And then there's one for TV and there's one for film and so on. And it's a diverse and it's quite a wide-ranging menu of options with the colour, disability, women, working class and LGBTQ issues, but they're all natural allies. And I think that if you, from my experience of doing quite well within my field and going to a very bog-standard state comprehensive, is that I find I meet fewer and fewer people the more successful I get who have a background anything like mine. Living in Hollywood, as I'm talking to you from at the moment, there's lots of, they don't really have class in the same way, but a lot of producers I work with are the children of producers, the actors are the children of actors. People who've got enough money to be able to claw their way through the impossibly expensive American higher education system. And then in the UK, you find there's a lot of Etonians and Harrovians running the show, and lots of, white men with their white friends. And I've found that, I've been passed over for jobs because I didn't go to the right school. And, it happened to me quite recently. And I thought, wow, even at this stage of my life, I find that the posh kid gets it. And there's a real, I'm not black. I don't personally understand the experience of dealing with racism against me. I'm gay, and I get what it's like to get homophobia. But we should all be, it's really easy to understand why there is a group of people who get left out. And as a constituent member of that group, we should all be clubbing together to make sure that our voices are heard. And that's what I love about the wide-rangingness of the awards, is that, as I say, these groups are natural bedfellows, and we should all be pulling together to say we've got something to say too. And I think that, this is the sort of tip of the iceberg, really. The awards are great, but because of the bursaries that have been put in place through the program, and just because of the general momentum behind it, something's actually going to happen now. This is a time that we're not just talking about stuff to our friends. This is a wider conversation, and the world is going to change.
Yeah, the diversity issue, we often think of LGBT and race and gender being part of that, but it sounds like class is quite important to you. And that's something that seems to be being mentioned quite a lot in theatre circles now, about everybody seems to have the same accent in theatre because, people with certain backgrounds can afford to be an actor where you don't actually earn any money for the first 5 or however many years. And
if you want to go to the drama school, probably you're going to go to London. There's good drama schools outside of London, but, the RADA, the Lambda, the Central, or, the Guildhall, they're all in London. Yeah. If you just want to live in London, it costs a fortune. Like, let alone paying for fees or books or bills or anything. Just to be able to live there is so expensive. And someone I know said to me, just last year, we were talking about a similar thing, someone who's from in terms of class and wealth, a very privileged background, saying to me, if my parents didn't have the money that they did and didn't have a house in London, I couldn't have studied at London Drama School. And I thought, actually, you could have done, because you would have done what I did, which was get 10 jobs, and then you could have paid for it. Yeah. But it's really, really difficult to do. And even like with the young cast in the Jamie movie, who we discovered pretty much out of nowhere, but the ones who did have the kind of training, even though they were all working class kids, they were the ones who lived in London, like in southeast London and those kind of areas. But they could get on a tube and go into town, and they could join the Kate Prince Dance Company. And Kate, who did the choreography for the Jamie stage shows and the Jamie movie, has been a huge, again, kind of proponent of getting her classes out around the country, not just being London-centric, because there's a kind of real London and the rest of the country divide. And at the heart of that is the fact that if you want to live in London, it's so expensive. So by actually putting his money where his mouth is, with the bursaries, what's so fantastic is that Adrian Grant is actually giving people a chance to kind of go and have their dreams come true by being able to be in the most exciting city in the world. And if you don't have the financial access to that, then you really will struggle to kind of make up the distance between you and that kid from Harrow who just dropped out of Guildhall and off he went with, a flat paid for by mummy and daddy. So it's really important, and it's not talked about enough.
So these awards do represent to you your own struggle to make it in the arts as well, I suppose, do they?
I mean, it would be, I think, disingenuous of me to say I had a struggle, because I was very lucky and very driven, and I was making good money by the time I was 22 as a writer. So actually, my struggling years were about 4 years of 18 to 22. It could have gone on for a lot longer had I not been as lucky, and I never would have given up. But at the time, it was all happening so fast, I didn't take it in. It's only when I look back, I realise how easy it could have all gone the other way if I hadn't have just made a couple of connections in the way that I did. And that I didn't have any safety net of family connections to fall back on. And that's a big thing when you're dealing with trying to build a career, is not having connections. Yeah. And if you come from a background like mine, there's nothing there that's like, well, why don't you just speak to Uncle Harry? He knows someone who's in television, or whatever it is. And there's so many people have that, and I'm not taking it away from them, good on them, and my kids will have that now because of me, because I've got those connections, but it's really hard to do it without them. And it's good that it's hard. It's a character test, and it makes you stronger and tougher and better, and the more things aren't given to you on a plate, the more you appreciate them when you have them and the more you work to earn them. But at the same time, it's so hard for kids who don't have any kind of, simply don't have parents who support them at all, or who just think the arts is a waste of time. And I can see how easy it would be to be discouraged. So kind of looking at why don't more comprehensive school kids end up in positions like mine? Is it because we're all stupid? No. It's because we don't have those connections. So I managed to make it happen. Good for me. But that doesn't mean that therefore those doors are open to everybody else, because a lot of those places are already taken by kids who had a running start. So awards like these are about trying to even the playing field a bit and create, a generation of gay kids or black kids or empowered women who can then pass on to their kids and their friends and their kids, so their friends' kids, the kind of connections that they didn't have, and just open it up, just try and make it fairer. It's not to take away from anybody, it's just to make it fairer.
So the money for these bursaries, what does it actually go towards? What does it pay for?
The specifics of that you'd need to talk to the trust, but it is to, as I understand it, it's to directly support people from, I think it's 18 to 29, to do their projects, and they'll get that money for a year. Exactly how they prove how they've spent it or whatever, I don't know the ins and outs, but it's to support people in their own creative projects so that they're not having to work 10 jobs to be able to fund that thing they want to do in their spare time, and then they don't have any spare time because they're doing 10 jobs. So it's, if you think £5,000 at that stage in your life is a hell of a lot of money. And that can really open up doors for people to be able to focus on the thing that can get them over the line and into that world they want to be in.
How do you actually get involved with the awards?
Well, because of Jamie. They approached me and asked if I would be a judge, and I read their information packet and I saw the good work they were doing. And I say it's very new. I'm pretty sure it just began last year.
Yes. Yeah.
And I thought, well, this is great, and to be involved with something from its early stages like this, I mean, I couldn't say no. And also, it's important to me, and I hope that we'll be fostering a generation of young people who, in 10, 20 years' time, will be sitting on judging panels of whatever the awards are then. I was very lucky in that I met Russell T Davies when I was 19, 20, who became my mentor and changed my life and gave me the support and the insight and the connections that I didn't have, and was incredibly kind to me. And I've passed that on by mentoring young writers in the same way he did for me. But I'm well aware how lucky I was to get that, and not everyone gets that. They can't. There's not enough Russells to go around.
No.
So things like this are a way of, I don't have time now to go and mentor 50 people, but through this, hopefully, in a sort of behind-the-scenes way, I can influence the lives of 50 people.
You got this through Jamie, which was an incredible success from only a couple of years ago. But I noticed I don't know if you've ever looked at your Wikipedia page, but it's mentioned under other writing ventures below Doctor Who and Comedy Central and Fungus the Bogeyman and everything you've done for TV. But in theatre, it's been a big thing since it started in Sheffield 2 or 3 years ago. So how did that come about?
Well, I've been friends with Dan Gillespie-Sells, who wrote the music, for quite a long time. We met through a mutual friend on a rally. And the wonderful thing about living in London is that things like that can just happen. Yeah. Again, the importance of being able to live in the capital city is you just bump into people like Dan in the street and can just be friends with them. And I loved what he did, and he loved what I did, and we started talking about writing a musical together. And then we started writing one. And then we bumped into Michael Ball at the theatre when we were going out and researching all the other shows that were around at the time. And Michael recognised Dan and sort of took us under his wing a bit when we explained what we were doing. And he then introduced us to Jonathan Butterell, who's the director of Jamie, originally because we were just looking for a director to help us put an idea together. And we didn't know that Jonathan already had a commission from the Crucible to do this story, having seen it on TV one night, because it was a documentary. Originally, the documentary has inspired everything else. And he had the commission and he had the idea, but he didn't have the writers. And he'd been looking around for people who could do a kind of a pop, in all senses of the word, musical, from the script to the songs to sensibility that would be pop and accessible and popular and popularist. And met me and Dan, who had not really done anything in theatre at all at that point, but just thought, oh, these are the guys. So we wrote it very quickly, in a few months, and then we had to play a kind of cat and mouse game with the theatre for about 2 years, waiting to get funding for different workshops, and we were kind of impatiently stamping our feet. And then eventually we got our 2 weeks in the least kind of prestigious slot a theatre can give you at the sort of arse end of February, when everyone's tired after Christmas and they've spent all their money, and it's almost impossible to publicise a show at that time of year, because all the publicity goes into the pantomime or the Christmas show and all the Christmas stuff. And we sort of thought, oh, it's just going to disappear after 2 weeks. But with the support of the people of Sheffield, and with the wonderful support from all the staff at the theatre, it became this incredible hit. And at the end of the first week, we got the movie deal, and at the end of the second week, we got the West End transfer. And it's just, I mean, it's still on in the West End. It's touring the world this year, and the UK. And the movie comes out, and it's just kind of gone from strength to strength.
Yeah, so the movie deal came that quickly then? That's being filmed at the moment, isn't it?
We filmed it. It's all done.
Oh, is it?
We've got our first test screenings in 2 weeks' time. I'm about to watch the third cut. Literally, when I finish talking to you, that's what I'm doing today.
Right.
And it's out on October 21st in the UK next year. This year.
This year, yeah.
Now, that's safe to say next year. So, it is imminent. And we got initially Warp, our producers in the UK, they came to see the show, and then they approached us about doing the movie, and we were kind of talking about like a $2 million, $3 million kind of like fun little British movie. Yeah. And then we went to the West End, and then the people from Disney and Fox and everybody saw the show in the West End, and suddenly we were this $30 million movie with Richard E. Grant and Sarah Lancashire and Sharon Horgan and Shod McGlatty, and yeah, it's kind of it's just kind of the project itself has exploded in tandem with the success of the stage show.
Yeah, so the West End transfer added another nought onto the budget.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and just the love people have it when they watch it. You know, the head of Disney marketing came to see it and kind of walked out saying, well, give them whatever they want. So it's, people just fall in love with it, like we did with the original story. It's very easy to fall in love with Jamie.
Now, how involved were you with the film?
Very. I did the screenplay. Dan and I wrote a new song for the film. I was there on set every day. Yeah, it was the same gang back together. Jonathan Bottrell directing it. It was his feature screen debut. I mean, I've done screen before, but it was my first movie. Yeah. And it was the three of us back together. We lived together for the shoot, and yeah, it was just like putting the stage show on again, except it went on and on and on and on, and you only did each scene once, and then that was it. Yeah. But it was brilliant. It's the true successor to the stage musical. It's heart and bones and DNA is all the same, and it's been put together by the same group of people. So I hope the fans of the stage show will love the movie, and vice versa when the movie's out.
Yeah, and it was filmed in Sheffield as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, filmed everything. We built a studio. Well, we converted a factory space into a studio. So our locations, our studio, everything was in Sheffield. Even when it looks like it isn't. There's some bits in London, but that was all Sheffield, really. And
so you've got a film coming out this year. You've got these awards. So what else have you got planned that you can talk about at the moment?
I have nothing I can talk about, but I have got some big stuff that will be, fingers crossed, all being announced this year. Yeah. I never really set out to be the musicals guy. In fact, I literally was talking about this with Russell T Davies yesterday. I said, I was supposed to be the sci-fi guy. How am I the musicals guy? I'm doing all these musicals. And it wasn't, I always wanted to do a musical, and I loved doing them, but I didn't expect to be doing quite so many as I am at the moment. But I'll have to get back onto doing some good old sci-fi in a couple of years once I've got all the songs sorted out for all these new projects.
That was Tom MacRae, writer of Everybody's Talking About Jamie, talking about the Visionary Honours 2020, the winners of which will be announced on the 18th of March, with the shortlist to be announced on the 4th of February. For more information, see www.visionaryarts.org.uk. You've been listening to a podcast from British Theatre Guide. For more information, please visit britishtheatreguide.info.